This is the Roy's Boys Podcast with your host, Joshua Marlowe. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Roy's Boys Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Marlowe, and today we are joined by the voice of the Tar Heels, Jones Angell. Jones, how's it going today?
Joshua, doing great. Really enjoying a little bit of a slower time, although just trying to get a couple loose ends tied up here before the end of the academic year at UNC, and then get into summer mode, get a little bit of time off, and then get ready to do it all again. So really had a terrific year this past season following the Tar Heels around, and looking forward to getting it going again here soon.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's discuss the year that was 2018-19 for Carolina basketball. For many programs, 29-7 isn't bad. You made the Sweet 16, you went 16-2 in arguably the sport's toughest conference. But for Carolina, it's kind of seemed as a disappointment. You called almost every game. You're around the program on a daily basis. What was the season in your eyes?
Well, I think it's hard to call it a disappointment, certainly. I mean, you got to remember how hard that tournament is to win, and the fact that only one team gets to do it every single year. And so when you're at a place like Carolina and you expect to achieve excellent results all the time, certainly you hope to be in the Final Four discussion every single year. I think Carolina was in that discussion, but they just unfortunately ran into a really hot team in Auburn in the tournament, and Carolina didn't play very well that game and had a couple guys that were sick, and I do think that affected their play. And that's just the reality of the NCAA tournament, is that you only have one game to play and you have to be at your best every single time you go out. But to let that define the season, I think would be a mistake. I think the Tar Heels really showed some tremendous growth as they moved through the year. This is a team that was playing its best basketball near the end of the season, a team that I thought really got better and better and better as the year went along, had some really exciting wins throughout the year, and I think positioned itself to have a deep run in the tournament. And again, just ran into a bad matchup and a hot team and didn't play very well, and sometimes that happens. And so while certainly Carolina felt like it had a team that had the potential and had the ability to play a couple more games in that tournament and be successful, more successful than it was in the tournament, I think to look at this year as anything less than a really exciting year and a really positive year for Carolina would be a mistake.
You mentioned the way the team developed from November to December. A lot of that's a credit to Roy Williams and the coaching and the job of the coaching staff. Was this probably Roy's best coaching job, or do you still lean to that 05-06 when Tyler Hansbrough was a freshman and he's still tied for first in the ACC and they just had another early exit? Where does this season, in terms of his coaching, rank for his time at Carolina?
Well, I think the good part about it, Joshua, is that it is just the norm. I mean, it doesn't. We could sit here and go through every single season that Roy Williams has been in Carolina, and I'm guessing outside of that 2010 year, where the Tar Heels really had a tough season and suffered some key injuries during that campaign. Other than that year, I think you can pretty confidently say that this is a normal track for Carolina, and that is it's a team that gets better every single season. It's a team that is playing its best at the end of the year, and it's a team that going into the tournament you feel like has the ability to make some noise, and I think that has been the case every single season. Again, outside maybe that one year where there are some odd circumstances, I think it's been that way every single year that Roy Williams has been the head coach, and you just saw it again this season. And it's always funny to me where Carolina inevitably is going to play a good schedule and they're going to lose a game or two in November or December, and that's okay. But every year the same thing happens, and that is everybody gets really worried and you start nitpicking every single aspect of what Carolina's doing, and these big pronouncements of what's wrong and how can they fix it, and it's just the process that the Tar Heels have gone through almost every year, and that has proven to be one that is successful for them. And you certainly never want to lose, but if you're going to take some lumps in November and December to then be playing your best in February and March, and hopefully April, I think everybody's okay with that. And so, was this Coach Williams' best coaching job? Maybe, but I think you could sit there and pick out every single year at his time in Chapel Hill and talk about something outstanding that he and his staff were able to do with those particular teams.
Now that the course of the season has concluded, we know that Nazir Little and Kobe White declared for the NBA draft as one-and-done freshmen. Where do they rank for freshman players under Roy Williams? Because they didn't win a national championship and all that, whereas like Tony Bradley won and left. Marvin Williams won a national championship and left. So are these still really – I mean, they're going to probably be lottery picks. Where they're standing under Roy Williams as freshmen?
Joshua, I don't know. I don't know if I'm or anybody's. I mean, we could all just make up a list and put it out there, and that's fine. But I think both Nasir Little and Kobe White had terrific seasons for Carolina, and in different ways. I think for Kobe, it was so much was put on his plate as far as being the starting point guard at Carolina. And when you're the starting point guard at Carolina, you're expected to do a lot of things. And Kobe was able to handle all of those things relatively easily. There were some bumps in the road, as you would expect, but for the most part, he played at a consistently high level all season long and improved in areas in which he needed to improve. He got better taking care of the basketball. He really elevated his defensive play, although he was never bad defensively during this season. And he continued to really find, I think, an impressive balance between being a guy who is a score-first point guard and then also being able to distribute to his teammates and get other guys involved. And he didn't lose that outstanding offensive ability that he just as an individual has. He kept that, but then was also able to keep other people involved in what they were doing. And so just a terrific year for Kobe White. I can't wait to see what he does at the next level, and whoever drafts him is not only getting a great player, but just a first-class person. Then when you look at Nasir Little, it's a different year for Nasir because so much was expected of Nasir from the outside. There were so many expectations placed on him, and he did not come in and average 30 points a game and play every single second. But what he did was he really fit in with this team. He found his role that was going to make him and the team very successful. He never complained. He never disrupted the team chemistry, even though I'm sure he, like every other player, would like to have played more than he did. But also he got better. I think his defense really improved as the year went along. He was a terrific rebounder as the season progressed as well. And you saw his offense mature as well as the year went along. And so just another really first-class kid from a great family who I think had a terrific season. And he is going to be a lottery pick more than likely, if not a lottery pick right outside the lottery. And he has just physical abilities that other guys don't have. And so he is going to be able to be successful at that next level. Now, when you're talking about where do you rank them, I have no idea. I think there have been terrific freshmen at Carolina, both under Coach Williams and before Coach Williams was here. And both of those guys are in that conversation as some of the most talented first-year players that Carolina's had.
So we know we lost to 2 freshmen, but we also are losing 3 accomplished seniors in Luke May, Kenny Williams, and Cam Johnson. That's kind of got the roster in flux, even with the commitment today from 5-star point guard Cole Anthony. And we've seen the Roy Williams reach out to numerous grad transfers. Do you think that's going to be the new trend for maybe Carolina or these bigger programs that are getting one-and-done talent so they have more experience on their roster?
It's not just Carolina. I just think that's the new norm in college basketball, at least as the rules are set up at this moment. And, obviously that has the potential to change here in the next couple of years. But I do think that the graduate transfer market in particular really has become such a big deal for college basketball, and Carolina has been involved. Certainly the Tar Heels don't want to try to turn their roster over every single year, but when you can get a high-quality grad transfer who fits in with your team and both on the court and academically at Carolina, like Cameron Johnson did, that's a no-brainer if you're the Tar Heels. And so I do think Carolina, just like all other schools, will be involved in that market moving forward, again, as long as the rules kind of stay as they are right now. And as you referenced, if you're going to recruit the one-and-done type of guys, if you're going to recruit guys who are only in school for a year or two, then you have to be able to understand the negative part of that as well, and that is that you don't have that ability to build your team necessarily with the bigger picture, the longer-term picture, as easily as you did 20 years ago when you expected if somebody left early, it might be after 3 years and not stay in a full 4. And so, as Roy Williams has always said, he wants to balance the building of his team with some 3 and 4 year guys along with some 1-year talents. And if you can keep finding that mix of guys who fit in with your culture, who fit in with your program, and have that mix of that high-level talent, then I think you're going to be okay. Now, I also think for the Tar Heels this year in particular, maybe a little trickier than others, because not only did you have your 2 one-and-done players, but as you mentioned, you lose 3 seniors who are really high-level contributors, and it won't be that way every single year. You'd love to have them, but you aren't necessarily going to have 3 seniors who start and are key contributors every single season. And so I do think maybe this year more than others for the Tar Heels, they are experiencing some heavy turnover. And I'll also say this, Joshua, I think, you mentioned Cole Anthony's commitment and how, it was late. It was late in the recruiting process. But I think as long as the one-and-done rule is still around, and I think guys will continue, some guys, not all, but some recruits are going to wait later in the process to commit so they can see what the situations are at specific schools. And so with the rules how they are, with the one-and-done and the graduate transfer and everything else, I do think this is a normal, maybe not just for Carolina, but for everybody out there in college basketball.
So with all the roster turnover, this can be a big summer for a lot of players, as it normally is for Carolina. If you had to pick the one guy that needs to have the best summer where he's going to improve on both ends of the floor to help this team next year to win games at the level they're expected to, who would that one guy be?
It's hard to pick one because I do think everybody returning for Carolina will have elevated roles and be expected to play a little bit more. But, I just think Leaky Black is somebody who is so valuable to Carolina because he can do so many different things. And I hate that Leaky got hurt this year, not just because I really like him and think he's a first-class kid, but just the fact that he was unable to continue to grow the way that he and Carolina wanted him to through that back half of the ACC season. And it really came at a time, that Georgia Tech game in kind of mid to late January, where you really started to see, you were thinking, man, Leaky Black's really starting to make an impact almost every time he's out there on the court. And you could see that growth occurring. And then for it to just come to an immediate stop, and that was really frustrating. And, of course, Leaky still worked on his game best he could and did things to continue to better himself. But it's just different when you can't go through full practices and where you can't be out there on game day. It's just a different level of growth that you're able to experience. And so, I really think Leaky's summer will be big. And Roy Williams mentioned it at the team banquet, singled out Leaky and Sterling Manley and said, hey, we need you guys healthy, need you back at 100% so you can contribute to the team like we know you can and are looking for you to do next year. And so, Leaky's just so versatile with his ball handling and his size and his defense and his improving jump shot. I mean, just everything he does is so valuable, I think, to the Tar Heels. So if I had to pick just one, I would pick Leaky Black because I think he can do so many different things to help your team.
You mentioned the team banquet, and you were at that event that happened, I think it was last Wednesday. Can you just give us some insight what it was like? I know it's always a fun night for Carolina basketball. Whether you win a national championship or not, it's kind of the last team event they'll do. Can you just tell us, give us some fun tidbits that happened at the banquet?
Well, Joshua, I think it was, as it normally is, it's just a very, I'll use the word intimate event, in that it's just kind of, it's the guys and the coaches and staff members and their families and a couple of select other people around the program. And it's just kind of a goodbye type of event. And especially in a year like this year, where you had so many seniors who were moving on and you knew weren't going to be a part of the program anymore, and you had some freshmen who you knew weren't going to be a part of the program anymore. It just felt like kind of the closing chapter on not only this season, but it felt like kind of the last couple seasons. It feels like the page is turning a little bit for the Tar Heels next year, just in that the core group of guys is going to be different than what we have seen over this run from 16, 17, 18, 19, and kind of that stretch. Yeah, it's just a different set of players now that'll make up your core group of Carolina basketball. And so an emotional night, as it always is, and the three seniors went up and spoke and did a terrific job, mostly just thanking their teammates and their coaches for what they were able to help them do at Carolina, and a lot of fun as well. Cam Johnson told a funny story about the one time that Luke May was ever late to anything, and he was like 90 seconds late and thought he was going to get kicked off the team. And it was just a fun evening with a very family feel. And so you just kind of stories and laughter and the stuff that you would expect when a family gets together. And to me, that's what it felt like the most.
All right, one last thing, and then I'll let you go. The Tar Heel tour is fast approaching, and I know you're a big part of that. Can you just give us some information where to go to buy tickets and where we can find both Mack Brown and Roy Williams on these trips?
Yeah, so we're getting started here in the last week of April and the first week of May. We'll be all over the state, and one out-of-state trip. We're going down to Atlanta this year as well. Everything else will be inside the state of North Carolina. And you can go to ramsclub.com and find the Tar Heel Tour icon there, and they'll give you all the different stops where the Tar Heels will be. Make sure that you know your options and the closest place that Carolina will be to you if you're interested in seeing it. Just the way that the schedules broke down, there's only one in which Coach Williams and Coach Brown will be there together. Now, either one or the other will be at every single event that we do, but there is only one, and that's in Charlotte coming up in, I believe it's April 30th. The first stop that we're making, that Coach Brown and Coach Williams will be there, and so looking forward to that. I think that'll be a really fun night, and of course there'll be a lot of excitement, and really, Coach Williams always does a terrific job on those type of events, and as you would expect, Joshua, there's a lot of interest in Tar Heel basketball. But I'm really excited to hear from Coach Brown as well, because I really think the energy around Carolina football has picked up so much over the last couple of months. You see it on the recruiting trail. I think you saw it with the excitement around spring football in Chapel Hill, and Coach Brown has put together just an incredible staff, and they are busting their tails to get Carolina back to where the Tar Heels feel like they should be year in and year out. And so Coach Brown is going to be awesome in those type of events, as you can imagine. It's not his first rodeo doing them, and so really looking forward to hearing from both those guys here over the next couple of weeks. But ramsclub.com, there's a Tar Heel Tour icon on there, and you can find out the dates and the locations of where we'll be. And again, that's coming up soon, starting right at the end of April, and then through the first couple of days of May.
All right, Jones. Well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come talk to me on the podcast.
Oh, happy to do it, Joshua. Appreciate you giving me some time, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
All right, Jones. Take care. All right, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Yep.